Welcome to the North Split Public Hearing presentation. This presentation will include 3 speakers. Formal verbal public comments for the project record will be taken immediately following the presentation at the public hearing. A court reporter will transcribe these comments. To allow time for all public comments, there will not be a question and answer session during or after the presentation. Also, the project team will not answer questions posed in the formal comments. This presentation will cover where you can find a copy of the Environmental Assessment or EA and opportunities to make a formal comment on that document. The project purpose and need. The alternatives analysis and preferred alternative. Select environmental impacts. A summary of the context-sensitive solutions, or CSS, process and the aesthetic design guidelines. Next steps for the project. And formal public comments following the presentation. A PDF copy of the EA is available on the project website at northsplit.com. Hard copies of the EA are available at the HNTB Indianapolis office, Central Library, Spades Park Branch Library, Garfield Park Branch Library, and the Martindale Brightwood Branch Library. This presentation and exhibit boards for the public hearing are available on the project website at northsplit.com. Formal comments for the project record can be made in the following ways: verbally at the public hearing, verbally via a toll-free telephone line at 1-877-799-6570. Complete a comment form at the public hearing. The project email at info@northsplit.com. The project website at northsplit.com/contact-us/. And by U.S. mail at P.O. Box 44141, Indianapolis, Indiana 46244. The formal comment period ends on August 17, 2020. The North Split interchange is located at the northeast corner of downtown where I-65 and I-70 come together. It is the busiest interchange in the region and second busiest in the state. The original pavement and bridges are from the 1960s and 1970s and need to be replaced. There is also a need for safety and operational improvements. The original design included connections for a fourth leg to the north for an interstate link to I-69. That interstate segment was never built. The primary need in the project area relates to the deteriorating condition of the infrastructure. With a few exceptions on I-70 east of the interchange, all bridges in the project area are in poor condition and need to be replaced. The pavement is also deteriorated due to heavy traffic and age, and needs to be replaced. The North Split has more crashes than most urban interstates in Indiana, averaging almost a crash per day. Traffic merge areas are too short and traffic is forced to cross and change lanes over short distances. This results in a high number of sideswipe crashes and rear-end crashes due to stopped or slowed traffic. The worst safety problems are where traffic is forced to cross, in segments known as weave areas. The most hazardous areas of the North Split are at Pennsylvania Street, where exiting traffic from I-65 must cross all traffic from I-70 traffic, and at Delaware Street, where entering traffic to I-70 must cross all I-65 traffic. Besides causing the highest number of crashes, these two weave areas are also the greatest cause of congestion in the North Split, causing traffic to back up every day. Together, these conditions define the purpose and need for the North Split project. The purpose is to rehabilitate and improve the existing interstate facility. The need is to correct deteriorated bridge and pavement conditions, improve safety, and improve interchange operations. This purpose and need will be met by replacing the infrastructure, eliminating the weaving sections, and applying modern design standards to improve traffic flow and overall safety. Alternatives were analyzed and provided for public review in a screening report in fall 2018. The alternatives evaluated ranged from doing nothing to expanding the interchange with more through lanes. The first test was whether an alternative meets the project purpose and need. Alternatives 1, 2, and 3 were eliminated at this stage. The no-build alternative, transportation system management, which is other actions and alternatives with no physical improvements, and replacing infrastructure as is, would not fix safety and congestion problems. Alternative 5 would meet the purpose and need and would add more through lanes. It was eliminated due to the impacts the widening would have in the project area. This left one alternative, Alternative 4, which would improve existing conditions without adding new through lanes. It had 3 variations which differed in how the Pennsylvania and Delaware weave areas were eliminated, with trade-offs in service and level of impact. To meet the project purpose and need, the weaves at the Pennsylvania and Delaware street ramps had to be eliminated. One way to do that would be to close the ramps entirely. Alternative 4A would do that. This option would have the least physical impact. The footprint of the interstate through that area would be the same as existing, as shown here. This option would also have the greatest traffic impact, since all access at these ramps would be lost. Alternative 4B would eliminate the weaves, while providing all the movements at Pennsylvania and Delaware ramps that exist today. This option would provide good service, but it would require widening the interstate footprint on both sides, with fairly high retaining walls to stay within existing right-of-way, as shown here. Alternative 4C was a compromise solution. It would provide most of the movements at Pennsylvania and Delaware street ramps that exist now, with minimal widening and moderate retaining walls on each side, as shown here. After holding public meetings and soliciting public input, Alternative 4C was deemed to provide the best balance of traffic service and impact. Alternative 4C was selected as the preliminary preferred alternative. On this map, you can see the layout of Alternative 4C, in black, and the existing interchange in white. Alternative 4C meets the project purpose and need by replacing pavement and bridges, correcting the worst safety problems, and removing the worst bottlenecks in the interchange. It has a smaller, more compact footprint than the existing interchange, with minimal widening and shorter walls, and can all be done in existing right-of-way. Minimizing impacts with Alternative 4C requires two compromises with respect to service. The Pennsylvania Street exit ramp would continue to have access from I-65, but there would no longer be access from I-70. Models show most of this I-70 traffic would divert to Michigan or Ohio Street, with minimal diversion to West Street. The Delaware Street entrance ramp would continue to access I-70, but there would not be access to I-65 southbound and the collector-distributor road leading to Michigan Street, Ohio Street, and Fletcher Avenue. These are movements that exit downtown on the north and re-enter downtown on the east. Volumes are relatively small. The Environmental Assessment, or EA, is the environmental document for the project. It is required per the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and analyzes impacts to both the human and natural environment. After the public comment period for the EA, the Federal Highway Administration will issue a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI, or make the determination that the project will result in significant impacts to the environment, and an environmental impact statement is required. Next we will discuss some of the key environmental focus areas for the project. There are many historic districts and properties next to the North Split project area. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act is a law that protects historic districts and properties. An adverse effect under Section 106 was identified for 4 historic districts or properties: the Old Northside Historic District and Morris Butler House within that district, the St. Joseph Neighborhood Historic District, and the Chatham Arch Historic District. INDOT is making commitments to mitigate impacts to these historic resources. Commitments are documented in a Memorandum of Agreement, and in the EA. INDOT studies noise impacts when making changes to existing interstates like the North Split. 5 potential noise barriers were identified per the INDOT traffic noise policy. 2 noise barriers are recommended based on benefited receptor surveys and other factors, such as visual impacts to historic properties. These noise barriers, 3E and 3W, are located north of I-70 and east of the interchange. INDOT is also using innovative noise-reducing technologies throughout the project area such as jointless pavement and bridges, and next-generation pavement grooving. Environmental justice, or EJ, includes fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people regardless of race or income. For highway projects, it involves identifying and addressing disproportionately high and adverse effects on minority and low-income populations. It also involves equitable distribution of benefits and burdens. As part of the EJ analysis for the project, potential EJ populations were identified using census data. INDOT organized and consulted with an EJ working group, which was very helpful for the process. An EJ public survey was also conducted. The public survey was heavily advertised, and over 1,600 surveys were completed. Responses from EJ and non-EJ community members were generally similar. No disproportionate impacts on minority or low-income populations were identified. The EJ analysis is documented in a technical memorandum and is an appendix to the EA. We have covered several community impacts, and now we'll discuss how traffic will be impacted by this project. Long-term traffic impacts will be minimal since no new through lanes are added, but there will be major traffic impacts during the 2 years of construction. As INDOT prepares for construction, a detailed maintenance of traffic plan for the construction zone itself is still in development. The overall closure plan and allowable closure periods were already set by INDOT, so the extent of roadway closures is known now. INDOT will administer a mobility management plan to reduce traffic impacts during construction. The primary road closure during construction will be the main line of I-65 and I-70 between Washington Street and the North Split interchange. This segment of I-65 and I-70 will be closed for about 2 years. The red lines show where the interstate will be closed south of the interchange. Through traffic on I-65 and I-70 will be detoured around I-465. The link between I-65 and I-70 across the north side of the North Split will remain open during the 2-year construction period. 2 lanes will be available in each direction at all times. The green lines show the link that will open between I-65 and I-70. Exit and entrance ramps across the north side of downtown will remain open except for a short period, up to 90 days, to reconstruct ramps at Pennsylvania Street and Delaware Street. Entrance and exit ramps will also remain open on the east side of downtown. Access to eastbound I-70 will be provided at Pine and Michigan Street, as it is today. Access to downtown from I-70 will be available from the Collector Distributor Road, which will be open to the Michigan Street exit or the Ohio Street exit, or both. Each exit will be closed up to a year, but they cannot be closed at the same time. The Collector Distributor Road will be closed south of Ohio Street. This is to preclude use by through traffic, and to close the Fletcher Avenue exit. Local streets will need to be closed while interstate overpass bridges are replaced. Closures of up to 90 days will occur at these locations. Bridges adjacent to each other cannot be closed at the same time. Washington Street is wide enough to build in stages, so lanes will be reduced but the underpass will not be fully closed. INDOT will administer a mobility management plan to reduce local traffic impact during construction. The plan has 3 major activity areas: traffic operations, travel demand management, and enhanced information for motorists. Activities related to the mobility management plan will continue throughout the construction period. It will be important for the surrounding traffic system to operate at a high level of efficiency during construction. INDOT is working with the city to upgrade traffic signals and traffic monitoring systems throughout the region. Most of the work, in and near downtown, will be completed this year. Spot improvements are underway to improve the efficiency of streets serving downtown. Most of these will also be finished this year. INDOT will work with emergency responders to establish incident management plans for quick and efficient response, in and around the construction zone. Travel demand management strategies focus on reducing peak period travel, to flatten the curve, so to speak. One way to reduce demand on roadways is a shift to other modes. INDOT is exploring strategies to promote use of transit, carpools and vanpools, and biking and walking. An employer education program will encourage work rescheduling strategies, or increased opportunities to work remotely during congested periods. INDOT will provide frequent, up-to-date bulletins on expected travel restrictions and closures. INDOT will apply its extensive communications technology programs to provide travelers with real-time information on current and anticipated traffic conditions. The objective will be to provide travelers with the best information available as they decide how to travel, when and where to travel, or whether to travel at all. The purpose of the aesthetic design guidelines is to provide the landscape architects with aesthetic direction for their final design. The aesthetic design guidelines are the result of an extensive public engagement process over the last 12 months, including meetings with local neighborhoods and neighborhood organizations, local agencies and oversight departments, key local resource groups, local business organizations, local stakeholders and stakeholder groups. The CSS process used to develop the aesthetic design guidelines was a 12-month process including visioning workshops with the local community, developing preliminary design treatments, public review and comment on the preliminary concepts, and ultimately a series of design enhancements developed in conjunction with the community. Throughout the process, INDOT held 12 neighborhood workshops, met with 15 different neighborhoods, 2 local business groups, and held 4 meetings with the Rethink Coalition. In the end, INDOT engaged with over 400 residents and received over 6,000 comments. Most of the visual elements of the project can be grouped into 2 different categories: bridge underpass treatments and landscape applications. First, there was specific attention on bridge and underpass treatments. This visual shows a typical bridge application. Aesthetic treatments include the use of surface treatments on walkways and special emphasis on lighting to ensure safety and connectivity through the underpasses. Lighting includes underpass lighting, decorative uplighting, and downlighting within the interchange. Underpasses include treatments to the abutment walls, wider openings, and abutment monuments to mark the underpass entries. Specific placemaking opportunities will accommodate future public art on the monuments. Wall surfaces will provide a simple pattern, as requested by adjacent neighborhoods. Each underpass was developed with a consistent design vocabulary allowing for subtle variations while still retaining continuity across the project, even on bridges not being replaced. This slide illustrates the different bridge treatment types and how they all work together to form a single design vocabulary. When the aesthetic treatments are combined, you can see how they come together in this rendering of a typical underpass. This shows a daytime view. This slide illustrates the same typical underpass at night, noting how the lights and lighting features create a safe and inviting feeling to the underpasses. This also illustrates how aesthetic features on the walls and monuments are lit for emphasis. The second most noticeable aesthetic element of the guidelines is landscape treatments. After extensive meetings with local representatives, the resulting landscape applications include an expansion of tree canopy to create an urban forest-type landscape throughout the project. This is an aerial view looking down on the main portion of the interchange. Landscape treatments include ground-level plantings, slope plantings, native seed mixes, shrubs and a mixture of trees to create a consistent landscape across the project. The landscape reduces overall maintenance while producing an urban forest downtown. This aerial rendering illustrates the overall application to the interchange. Not only is this landscape approach more appealing to highway travelers, but it also provides significant screening of the interstate for local neighborhoods and surrounding areas. This view looks southeast from College Avenue north of the interstate, and illustrates the screening potential of the landscape treatments. The aesthetic design guidelines also provide some limited applications to bridges that are not being replaced as part of the project, including Alabama Street and Commerce/Roosevelt Avenue. The Commerce/Roosevelt Bridge was previously reconstructed in an earlier project, so it is not being replaced now. INDOT received public comments in April 2020 requesting enhanced features at Commerce/Roosevelt, similar to other bridges. INDOT has adjusted plans at Commerce/Roosevelt in response to those comments. For the Commerce/Roosevelt Bridge, these limited applications are included in this project. The existing bridge will remain in place. Sidewalks will be replaced through the bridge area, within INDOT's limits. Lighting fixtures will be replaced and upgraded. Side slope landscape plantings will be included in areas adjacent to the bridge. INDOT will also provide funding for a mural on the existing bridge columns, if chosen by community. These applications help the bridge to fit within the overall design vocabulary for the project while improving connectivity and safety, and providing for placemaking opportunities with the adjacent neighborhoods. Today, you heard a summary of the North Split project to date, ranging from environmental study to traffic impacts to CSS solutions. The next steps for the project include the following. The public comment period for the EA is now open. Comments are due by August 17, 2020. The environmental study process will conclude with NEPA determination by FHWA. Construction is anticipated to start in late 2020 and finish in 2022. This concludes the presentation. Thank you for viewing the North Split public hearing presentation.